let's talk about the second and final visual for my synthesizer. This one I have called Freq lines, as in frequency lines. I'll start by playing the example track, which is Ultra Lounge by Kevin Cloud. First, I start with this AV cross object, which has a low pass and a high pass filter to split the incoming audio into 3 bands, one being the low frequencies, one being the mid frequencies, and one being the high frequencies. Those 3 bands of audio then go into this AV catch object, which converts the audio into a one-dimensional matrix, which can then be used by this JIT graph object, which actually renders out the lines here. This is also where I can add the color of red, green, and blue. I have these anim drive objects to use to move the lines together and apart. Using move 2 will have them move over a length of time instead of immediately. Let me pause the audio. When they all align, they form a white line. That's because they are being additively blended together. That is done with these video plane objects. Since the graph objects had a hard time getting the blending mode right, I use these JIT-GL node objects to capture each of the graphs and then render them onto a plane that can then have additive blending applied to it. So when they add together, they all create white, and then red green makes yellow, blue red makes magenta, and blue green makes cyan. Let me discuss the next part of this, which is the visual feedback. I found that it's a little hard to understand with just the lines, so I move to this cube that has it's just rendered in lines. So if I turn on or turn up the visual feedback parameter here, what's happening is the output of this scene is going into a texture. That texture is going into this jit.gl pix object, which is doing some math for the visual feedback, which I'll explain in a second. And then the output of that is being fed back into the JIT world, which is rendering the scene. So the output of the scene is being altered and then going back into the input. That's what creates the feedback. If this was set to 1, it would smear because every previous frame is just as bright as the new frame being rendered. If I set it to something below 1, it will slightly get dimmer every time that's fed back in until it becomes not possible to see anymore. This stretch parameter is pretty nifty. If I change it to some negative value, it grows bigger every time that it's fed back in. And if I keep going, it creates these cool fractal-like patterns. And if I go back to 0 and do it above 0, it's a little hard to see, but it's instead being shrunk down instead of stretched out every time that's being fed back in. And that also can get those cool fractal images. There's also a parameter to offset it left and right and up and down. Now, if I take out the cube and bring back in the lines, let me quickly reset the feedback so there's no green on the screen. Play the sound again. Now you can see that there's some cool ghosting that's happening due to the feedback. And if I move it out, and stretch it forwards, some cool effects start happening. You can also move it inwards. There's also cool effects happen when I rotate the camera of the scene with this setup. As it moves around, and especially reaches this point, there's some cool fractally stuff that happens on the side. And the last bit of polish that I have is having the output of this scene go into another renderer where I can then safely add a bloom effect. Since if I were to add bloom here, it would be picked up by the visual feedback and get brighter and brighter and brighter until the entire screen was white, which is not ideal. And this is the basis of the effect, the visual effect that I use. But instead of an example song, I use the output of the synthesizer.